Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Ask Away. Thanks for joining me. Thanks to everybody in the live chat for being here. Hi, everybody. Um, as usual, as we always, thank you, some random geek. The first comment I see from some random geek in the chat is, "And Steve is on time this time." There's just no pleasing some people. I guess unless you're more or less on time for the start of the show. Um, but So, as usual, I am going to be answering questions from my Patreon patrons to begin with here. So, if you are with us in the live chat and you have a question that you want to ask me from the live chat, or you want to be generous and donate a super chat or something like that that you want me to acknowledge during the show, please hold on to that until I get through the patron questions, and then I can spend the rest of the show hanging out with everybody in the live chat and give it my full attention. Because if you ask a question or do a super chat while I'm answering the patron questions, I might not see it, and then you'll think that I'm snubbing you on purpose, which is probably not the case. Maybe it is, but probably not. So here we go with the first of the patron questions, and it is from Orion McMurray. And Orion McMurray says, "You have probably been asked this before, but if you had a choice to eat with anyone in Star Trek, I suppose that's supposed to be Star Trek, who would it be? And what would the meal be?" Well, I think I've mentioned before, the person would probably be Jonathan Frakes. Uh, and what would the meal be? I don't know. I mean, would I want to do like a real deep, like Star Trek reference and eat like scrambled eggs with Jonathan Frakes because of that episode where Riker cooks eggs for everybody and the eggs suck? So I would be like, let's not, let's not eat scrambled eggs, or at least not let's not have Frakes cook the eggs. Or maybe pizza, do a little Picard action like from Nepenthe, little brick oven pizza maybe. That would probably have to be it. Go out for brick oven pizza with Jonathan Frakes. Come on. That's like the Star Trek nerd's dream meal at the moment, at least for me. So yeah, that's got to be it. That's got to be it. A good brick oven pizza with Jonathan Frakes. I feel like pizza now. I think after the show is over, I'm gonna uh, see what the local pizza places are delivering on Grubhub tonight. See if I can get some Black Friday pizza. Oh, God, that sounds good. Next patron question. Thank you, Orion. Next patron question is from Michael Hanneline, who says, "Good day, Steve. You know that trope that's been around for a long while where the villain creates a monster, literally or figuratively, to fulfill the villain's own evil goals, but that monster ends up being what destroys them? Completely unrelated, but what are your thoughts on Trump turning his deluded loyalists against Fox News? Or on Tucker Carlson's diehard fans suddenly calling for his cancellation because he had the audacity to speak the tiniest sliver of truth for once and point out that Trump's attorneys refused to show any actual proof of election tampering, even to Fox? Or how about the Trumpers who are organizing a boycott of the Georgia runoff election? Is this shit more funny because of the hoist with his own petard nature of it? Or terrifying because now what the hell do we do about the brainwashed Republican monsters, but I repeat myself, who are now guzzling even more dangerous misinformation from OAN and Newsmax? Well, yeah, there is definitely a part of it that is really super cathartic and delicious. But you're right. There is also a part of it that is like super worrying, you know. Um, and Yeah, it's tough because and what do we do about it? I don't know what we do about it other than just continue to try and encourage progressive people, left leaning people, etc., to get out and vote and get involved in the political process and just try to deny political power and social currency and social influence to those people as much as we possibly can. So they can go off and watch OAN and Newsmax all they want and get and they will have less of an ability to influence the culture and to hurt people. But yeah, I mean, was it? I want to say it was Kayleigh McEnany, but I don't think it actually was. I think it was one of Trump's legal team. Um, who said that he tweeted something saying, oh, what did they say? And thank you, people, for telling me that my mic is a little loud. I will turn it down. How's that? Is that better? But yeah, now that I think about it, it wasn't Kayleigh McEnany, but it was somebody on Trump's legal team who said, if you want to piss off a conservative, lie to them. If you want to piss off a liberal, tell them the truth. And it's like, we've seen from these ardent conservatives, the Newsmax and the OAN people, like the people who are like, the far right conservative people, they're the ones that are like the most allergic to facts, because you're right. Tucker Carlson is a great example. Like, all Tucker Carlson did, and fuck Tucker Carlson. I have, like, let me reiterate, like, I have a standing fuck you to Tucker Carlson. He can go to hell. But all he did was ask Trump's people for evidence of the fraud that they are alleging took place that cost him the election. And then, when they didn't give him any evidence, he told his audience about it. That's it. That's it. Trump's lawyers, Trump's people said, oh, there's all this voter fraud. Tucker said, great, awesome, all this voter fraud. I want to help. Show me the evidence of the voter fraud. They had nothing. So Tucker Carlson told his audience that they had nothing. And that apparently was doing something wrong in the eyes of these people. That apparently was too much. Tucker Carlson should not have done that. But yet somehow it's, oh, if you want to piss off a liberal, tell them the truth, right? Because conservatives, they love the truth, right? It's absolutely ass backwards from what it should be. It just, I mean, even that is untrue. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah. But as to what do we do about it, I have no idea. Next question is from Eric Allen. All right, Steve. Over the years, Star Trek characters have been known to give some pretty good insults, most notably Dr. McCoy and TOS in the movies, but my favorite by far is Kirk's huffs. Well, double dumbass on you to some cabbie in San Francisco. I still use that to this day when possible. What are some of your favorite insults throughout all of Star Trek? As always, thank you for all the wonderful content you provide, and I hope you and yours are doing well. I've gone through pretty much all of your playlists repeatedly and haven't got tired of you yet, so you must be doing something right. Well, thank you, Eric. That's really nice of you to say. I don't know what that says about you, but I appreciate it because it is to my direct benefit. I love the Klingon insult, patak. And I especially love it the way Admiral Jirac says it in the episode "The Defector" of TNG, when he uses it on Worf, and I think he's talking to Riker, but Worf is standing right there, and he's like, tell this Klingon patak to get out of my sight, or something like that. It's just, oh, I love it. I love it so much, and especially because I love that actor who also played Dr. Mora in Deep Space Nine, and also guest starred in a couple of episodes of MacGyver, and is just one of my favorite character actors, whose name now, of course, I cannot remember. So now I'm going to have to look that up. Admiral Jirac. James Sloyan. James Sloyan. I can never remember his name, but he is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, patak, as said by James Sloyan, would be one of my favorite Star Trek insults. Danny K says, hi, Steve. As we approach the Georgia Senate runoff, I must admit I am not very confident in the likelihood of a Dem victory, but as it happens, the role of Senate Majority Leader is not prescribed by the Constitution and exists largely, as you guessed it, a formality/tradition based upon the assumption that both parties are operating under some semblance of good faith and interest in governing. What the Constitution does state, though, is that the Vice President shall serve as the President of the Senate. Since the Republicans have abandoned both an interest in governing, even the appearance of good faith, and are now committed to just stealing as much as they can and burning the country down when they're finished, would you say it is time for VP Harris to step in and use her constitutionally prescribed authority to take that privilege? from current majority leader slash sadistic ass chasm Mitch McConnell. Thanks for reading. Hope all is well. I would say yes, but I really don't know how much good that would do if the Republicans still hold a majority of seats in the Senate. I mean, we could say that the VP could step in and perform the role of president of the Senate more directly, but I don't really think that would make much of a difference. If we're saying like, well, at least maybe more bills would come to the floor to vote, because one of the things that McConnell is doing and has been using his power as majority leader to do for a very long time is to just stop bills that he doesn't like from even being brought up to vote. And I don't know what the Senate procedural rules say about what the vice president can and can't do, but because the Constitution doesn't go into very many details about it, we would have to refer to senatorial procedural rules, I would think. I don't know if the vice president could come in and she could assume her role as president of the Senate and see to it that more bills are brought to the floor for a vote than are being brought under McConnell as the majority leader. But if the votes aren't there to pass them, it really wouldn't make that much of a difference anyway. I mean, if the Republicans still hold a majority, practically speaking, I don't think it would make that much of a difference. But I would be very down for giving it a try. Like, I would not say don't do it or don't try it. You know, anything that the Democrats can do, especially with such a slim majority or a minority, depending on how the Georgia races go, anything that they could do to gain an advantage is something that I would recommend that they do. But yeah, I don't know if it would make that much of a difference, you know. Next question is from Andrew Priest, who says, "Hiya, Steve. Hope you and yours are all well. My cousin's kid has been remotely attending college or high school in U.S. talk, and they're studying celebrated historical heroes who should be viewed as villains. Must be a hoot to go to that college. What's her next report going to be on? History's best plagues, most dramatic natural disasters? She was doing Churchill. The last she's dating of Korean ancestry was doing Douglas MacArthur, who proudly boasted that the U.S. Air Force killed up to 25% of the North Korean population. Got me thinking about other beloved famous wankers and how little I knew about them. My granny's grandpa was Francis Rhodes, brother of imperialist Cecil Rhodes, an example of a man who firmly believed cultural subjection was the best thing for what he viewed as savage civilizations. I started looking into Washington and the founding fathers after that, and holy fucking Jesus! Your Ask Away homework assignment is, who do you think is the worst beloved historical dickhead? Well, I don't know if he's the worst, and I don't know if he's as beloved as he used to be when I was a kid, maybe, because there has been a lot of really, I think, really excellent historical revisionism about him relatively recently. So his stature has fallen a bit, but I would say Andrew Jackson. I think Andrew Jackson for a very long time was viewed as a pretty great president, and the bad parts of his administration were kind of, you know, they were acknowledged, like, yeah, there's the whole, you know, the Native American thing, right? But that was sort of pushed off in a corner, and he was generally thought of as like this really, really great, historically significant president. And he was definitely historically significant. He left his stamp on the office for sure. But on the whole, I think nowadays, many of us, perhaps most of us who study history and study the American presidents would think that Andrew Jackson was kind of a nightmare. He was, you know, just he was I believe I've read a few places he was considered racist even for his day, and we're talking like early 19th century here. He was considered racist even for his day. He was very erratic. He was incredibly corrupt. He gave, you know, jobs in the executive branch to friends of his and sort of started the spoils system, and was just not, and the whole Native American genocide thing. which should not be just sort of swept aside. That should be something that is chained to his neck for the rest of history. That's something that should not be overlooked. And he was a horrible president and a horrible person who did incredible damage to the lives of many people in this country. Many of whom were indigenous people or Native American people, and he was awful. So he would always be near the top of my list. I'm not sure how, that's my only caveat with mentioning him in response to this question, is I'm not sure how beloved he still is, but he was awful. He was awful. He was awful. And yeah, I'm glancing at the live chat. People in the chat are saying sounds like Trump. He's one of Trump's favorite presidents. To the extent that Trump actually has a favorite president, I don't really know if Trump actually knows all that much about Andrew Jackson, or indeed knows that much about anything that he claims is his favorite whatever. I mean, he claims that Citizen Kane is his favorite movie. I do not think he has ever actually watched it, but that's what he says. So, but he also says Andrew Jackson is his favorite president, and if that is indeed true, that makes perfect sense. Next question is from SP Joe. How problematic do you think it is that in the US, only rich persons are elected as presidential candidates? As a European, it seems also very strange that there are multiple candidates from the same families over the years. Are there some intentions in the Democratic Party to improve choosing a candidate that is more in the center of society? I I don't think so. I don't think the Democratic Party is making any active plans to do that. But I agree with you that it's a problem, and not just in terms of economic class. It is certainly a problem that wealth is sort of has to be a prerequisite to gain high political office in this country. Like that is something that needs to change. But it's not just the fact that only people of a certain social or economic class can gain elected office. It's also, almost all of the elected members of the elected legislators in Congress are lawyers. Like almost all professional politicians in this country are lawyers. And there's nothing wrong with lawyers. Like I'm not going to go into some anti-lawyer screed. Like I know people who are lawyers, who are fine people, who are wonderful people, who are, they're like, I'm not going to like start throwing out corny lawyer jokes here, but almost all politicians are lawyers. And I think it would be a wonderful thing for the country if people of other professions sort of were able to get in on that. If there were people who were politicians who were scientists or teachers or artists, like that would be a wonderful thing. And yes, you would still want people to be educated and informed on the issues, but lawyers aren't the only smart people. I mean, you can be of another profession and still be an informed, intelligent person able to make good decisions based on facts and evidence and what is in the best interest of your constituents and of the country as a whole without being a lawyer. So I would love to see not just the not just to open things up, not just to people who aren't as rich as a lot of politicians are, but also people from different backgrounds and different career paths, because there's just way too many lawyers, in the political class. I would love to see that a lot more career diversity as well as anything else. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on that. Next question is from David Colby, who says, it's another week. It's another chance to hold Steve hostage to my ineffable questioning whims. List the most boneheaded thing each of the Star Trek captains did, from Kirk to Picard. One boneheaded thing per series. So one from Enterprise, one from Disco, one from TOS, one from TNG, and so on. And don't try and weasel out of it by saying, well, technically Sisko is a commander, so he didn't do anything that boneheaded. You know what I mean. And no, you can't double dip on the Janeway answer. You have to choose the most boneheaded thing Janeway did, not list all 20. Okay. Let me try to think here. What's the most bonehead? Well, I mean, it wasn't really, he didn't know it at the time, I guess, but it certainly came back to bite him in the ass. I'd say probably the most boneheaded thing Kirk did during TOS was dropping Khan off on SETI Alpha 5 and then just taking off and never coming back to check on him. Oops. What's the most boneheaded thing Picard did? Most boneheaded thing Picard did in TNG. What's the most boneheaded thing Picard did in TNG? I'm coming up with a blank on that one. I don't know off the top of my head. He he almost forcibly displaced those descendants of Native Americans from the from their planet in the episode Journey's End, but he didn't actually do that. I don't know. I can't think of anything other than that. I can't think of anything for Picard. Cisco probably. I mean, poisoning the planet was not, was. I mean, he did it to get Eddington, but like maybe letting Eddington into his inner circle in the first place, which Cisco kind of gave himself a hard time about that. He kind of was like, I can't believe I let him, get over on me like that. But maybe we should do that because if Eddington hadn't have gotten over on Cisco so he could get up and betray Starfleet for the Maquis, then Cisco wouldn't have had to poison the atmosphere of that planet to catch him. Janeway, Jesus, most boneheaded thing, the Tuvix thing for Janeway. For Archer in Enterprise, the Dear Doctor thing where they decide to let those aliens die of a genetic disease that they could cure because of the Prime Directive that nobody's even thought of yet. And I'm sure, and Burnham has done a lot of boneheaded things in Discovery. I'll just go with the from the first episode, putting the neck pinch on Giorgio and trying to fire on the Klingons. I mean, I know she gets wrongfully blamed for that because I don't think that, I mean, that technically wasn't the cause of the war with the Klingons, but still, you can't be neck pinching your captain. Come on, Michael. And Picard in Star Trek Picard maybe walking into the Admiral's office and expecting to just be reinstated and given a ship. Like that's pretty boneheaded. Yeah, I'm sure there are better answers to all of those, but those are just off the top of my head. Dean Sturgis says, with the light at the end of the COVID tunnel twinkling tantalizingly in the distance, is there anything you're looking forward to returning in the coming year, specifically something maybe non-obvious that you didn't realize you would miss? I mean, not really. I honestly, I was not that much of a social person to begin with. Like I never really went out to bars or clubs. I never really went like to friends' houses for large gatherings before. Like I just didn't do any of that. That's never really been my scene. So I don't really miss like the social aspect of it because that I wasn't like all that social to begin with. It'd be nice to be able to go to a movie theater. It'd be nice to be able to go out to eat in a restaurant, without having, I mean, cause like, I don't do that at all. Like I'm not, there are the restaurants in my state have been open with limited capacity and with social distancing and masks and stuff like for a few months now, but I haven't gone because I just don't think that's a good idea. Like it's still a pandemic. We shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, being able to go out to a restaurant, to be able to sit down and eat in a restaurant will be nice. Being able to go to a movie in a movie theater will be nice. But, those aren't really like non-obvious. Those are things that a lot of people are talking about and looking forward to. I can't really think of a non-obvious one because I work from home and because I wasn't that much of a social person to begin with, my life really hasn't been affected nearly as much by the pandemic and by the lockdown and social distancing and all that as a lot of other people's, which I feel a little bad about because I see other people really stressed out about it and having to deal with stuff that they were not prepared for or didn't expect to have to deal with. And I just haven't really had that much of that. I have to wear a mask when I go out to the grocery store. Like that's really it. Like, so no, there really isn't like a big non-obvious thing that I'm looking forward to. Nonstop Pop says, with the pandemic having shut down much of professional sports, do you think that the time is ripe now for a rise in visibility and popularity for alternatives such as esports and other non-traditional fare? We've seen the Marble League rise to a certain amount of prominence with an endorsement from John Oliver, and last week tonight puts on hipster hat, glasses, and ridiculous mustache. I was into the Marble Olympics before they were cool. I have also been having a lot of fun watching, of all things, Hot Wheels racing via 3D Bot Maker on YouTube. Have you discovered anything during the pandemic that you would have probably missed in the before times? Again, I wish I had a better answer to this question, but no, not really. I mean, no. Like the only it's not even a sport, it's a fake sport, but the only sport-ish thing that I watch like with any sort of regularity is pro wrestling, and pro wrestling has not really been affected by it. I mean, pro wrestling has been affected by it because they can't have like a live crowd at wrestling shows like they used to. AEW, which is the show that I watch most often, which is it's the only show that I watch like regularly every week. Make sure I never miss AEW on Wednesday nights. They have started having small groups of fans in sort of socially distanced pods in their outdoor venue for the last couple of months, and that seems to have been going well. And I don't think there have been any outbreaks or anything like that. So fingers crossed that keeps going. But I mean, they continue to produce shows. They just produced shows without live audiences. They would have like wrestlers in the seats near the ring to sort of cheer and provide some crowd noise, but the shows themselves never stopped. So no, I mean that's really the only sport-ish thing that I followed before, and that I still follow. So I didn't really feel like I needed to seek anything out to find, like, I mean, people are finding like, yeah, like the Marble Racing League or Hot Wheels race. Like that's great. If that's what people need to take the place of sports that aren't really, happening the way they used to during the pandemic, I think that's great. But no, again, I wish I had a better answer, but I haven't. No, I haven't really discovered anything during the pandemic that I would have missed before. Eric Byer says, would you care to make any predictions for 2021? Does the new year have you optimistic for anything in particular? Assuming vaccines work, is there anything in particular you are looking forward to doing? Thank you again for all you do. Nah, other than what I just said, going to the movies or going out to a restaurant or something. Not really. No, not really. Maybe taking a road trip, but I'm not sure about that. That's not entirely up to me, is it? But yes, I don't know. Nothing like jumps to mind. I'm not going nearly as stir crazy. I don't have nearly as much cabin fever about the pandemic as a lot of people do, because I have been very, very fortunate as far as how it has affected my life, personally. Mrs. Christiana Gray says, what is your favorite video game? And what makes a game a video game? Does any game with digital elements count, or only games that can be played on a console or a computer? Where should the line be drawn? What is my favorite video game? That's a good question. Um, it's probably like a classic Nintendo game. It's because that was classic Nintendo was like NES, like the original Nintendo. That's the one that was like I had that when I was a kid, but I never got a Super Nintendo. I never got like an N64 or anything like that. So I don't know. I really like, for some reason, I always really liked Mario 2. Mario 2 is the one that, like, I don't know how many people's favorite that one is. Everybody likes Mario 3, which is an awesome game, but I always kind of dug Mario 2. And also there's a Batman game called Batman Return of the Joker that I just absolutely adored and still like. I have a Raspberry Pi with a bunch of old video games on it that I play every once in a while. And Batman Return of the Joker is awesome. So I don't know, that might be my favorite, or that's up there on the list of favorites. And there's a computer game from about 30 years ago called Star Trek 25th Anniversary, a Star Trek game, obviously, that is really fun. I love that. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to pick a favorite video game, but those are some of the possibilities. And does any game with digital elements count as a video game? I don't know. It's I would say it would have to be a game that has like a digital element or a video element, and through interacting with that video or digital element in some way, the player affects the outcome of what happens. Like it would have to be something like that. You know what I mean? Because I was thinking like there's the Star Trek Next Generation board game that comes with a videotape that you play the tape while you're playing the game, and every once in a while, Robert O'Reilly as a Klingon guy, not Gowron, but another Klingon guy who looks and talks and sounds exactly like Gowron, pops up and gives you orders and tells you to do stuff during the game. And but I don't know if you would call that like a video game, even though there's a video element to it, because you're not really interacting with it's totally one way. You're not interacting with the Klingon character on TV. He's just popping up and telling you to do stuff, and you do it, and it affects the way the game goes. So I don't know if that would count. So I think it has to be like interactive in some way. You know, that would be um uh my attempt at trying to define a video game, or what makes a video game a video game. Agent Meister says, "Hi, Steve. This is my first ever question, and I hope I won't make a total ass of myself. First, I want to tell you how much I enjoy your channel. To paraphrase so many comments I've seen on your videos, I came for the Star Trek and stayed for the politics. While I wouldn't agree with 1,000,000% of what you say, I'd like to think that in an alternate universe where we're neighbors, we could share a beer. Anyway, my question is this. If you had to choose, would you rather be so gullible that you would believe anything you're told and be seen as a fool by all and sundry your whole life, or would you prefer to be so skeptical that you would miss out on important opportunities, which would result in the amount of regrets you have building up over the course of your life? Thank you for reading my question. Kind regards. Keep up the great work. Stay safe. Live long and prosper. Agent Meister in Ireland." Well, thank you very much. It was a good question. I don't think you made a fool of yourself at all. When I was younger and cockier, I would have said the second one without even having to take time to think about it. Now that I am older and probably not all that wiser, but someone with a few regrets piled up, let's say, I don't know. That first option is really tempting because I wouldn't know the difference, right? Like, yeah, I would be a fool, and other people would think of me as a fool, but I would be a lot happier. You know what I mean? And I would have fewer regrets, or maybe no regrets. And if I choose the second one, I would have maybe a more truthful life, but I would also have a lot more regrets. And I guess the question is, do you what because like you could say, well, you don't want to do the first one because the first one you wouldn't be living in as truthful of a way. You wouldn't have as authentic of an existence. But it would feel that way to you. And I mean, life is your experience of reality is all that you ever have of it. You know, it's a tougher question than it seems to be at first glance. If I wouldn't know the difference, and you said, you know, you can have a life where, yes, you're a really gullible guy and you'll believe everything you're told and everybody will see you as a fool. But that life would be happier and more personally fulfilling than the super skeptical life where you miss out on things because you are so reluctant to believe or to accept things. I don't know. I think I might choose the first one. Because life can be really hard and you only get one. And I don't know. But it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough question and a really good question. So straight first shot out of the box. Andrew C. Hawkins says, last time's question about history was inspired in part by a book I've been reading called The Big Strike by Mike Quinn, available for free from the Internet Archive, about the San Francisco General Strike of 1934, which was the climax of the Greater West Coast Maritime Strike of the same year. In addition to being surprised that I had heretofore known almost nothing about the event, I'm also a little astonished that I can't find films about it. Are there any episodes in the U.S. labor movement history that you would like to see in a film, either as the main subject or the setting of another story? God, there are, but I think this is a testimony to how poor our education is about this topic. Is there are events from the late 19th, early 20th century that I know I'm aware of, but I cannot remember the name of any of them right now for the life of me. So, you know, like I just I can't think of a specific event that I would want to know, but I know there are many. Like I know there are many. I know I've watched documentaries about them. I've watched documentaries about the history of the labor movement and the history of the clashes between cops and striking workers in Chicago and New York and in Pennsylvania, that were just awful, that paved the way for the modern labor movement and for many of the rights that workers have today that they did not have before they fought, and many of them gave their lives for the right to collectively bargain and to form labor unions and to advocate for their rights. But can I think of a specific incident right now off the top of my head? I cannot, and I'm ashamed of that. Like I'm embarrassed that I can't do that. I'm sure there are people in the live chat right now who are popping things up and saying, "What about this? What about this?" But off the top of my head, I can't. You know, I can't think of anything. But yes, of course, there are many episodes in the labor movement that deserve to be dramatized and deserve to be made more of a focal point of education and just of our general cultural awareness. For sure. It's a very, very important part of our history that we should be very proud of. We should be very proud of the labor movement and of workers standing up for their rights and coming together and fighting for what is theirs and what they are entitled to. It's something that we should be incredibly proud of and be learning about, all the time, for sure. Thinking Cat says, how can Discovery be in the regular Trek universe when its glaring continuity error now is the mirror universe? As it was nice to see David Cronenberg, but his dialogue contradicts Deep Space Nine with the mirror universe crossovers. Really, if Discovery is one of the alternate universes, it would make me happy, as I was hoping in season 1 it would turn out Discovery is from the mirror universe, as it would explain lots of things that differ from especially the Vulcans, whom I'm a massive fan of, especially in Enterprise. Their telepathy involves physical contact, not projecting the mind. That's Jedi powers. Really, for me, the most unforgivable was the Klingons. I've been rewatching Enterprise again, and all the difficult work to make why TOS Klingons looked so human was explained so perfectly. Then you have these orcs who don't look, sound, or act like Klingons. Why they didn't just make them Remans baffles me. Anyway, my question is, what could have led to this Discovery universe? What major past events? I don't know, and I don't think we need to explain any of that because, as I have said in videos many times, and I haven't said this recently, so maybe it bears repeating, just in case anybody is unaware that this is my position on this. It's a made-up TV show. And if the producers of the made-up TV show say that Discovery takes place in the same timeline as TOS and TNG and DS9 and everything else, then that's what it is. Period. It doesn't matter how many continuity errors there are. It doesn't matter how different things look. It doesn't matter how the Klingons look. It doesn't matter what how the technology fits in with the level of tech evident in TOS or whatever. None of that matters at all. This is not real. It's a made-up TV show. And if the people who are making up the TV show say, yeah, it looks different and the tone is different and the technology is more advanced than what we saw in the other shows set during this era, and the Klingons look different and we didn't really explain that, why they look different than they look in classic Trek or how they looked in Enterprise, that none of that matters. It's a fake TV show. If the producers of the show say that it takes place in the prime timeline, then it takes place in the prime timeline. It would be like if somebody did a Superman movie and they said, they had a scene set on Krypton and there were people flying around, like everybody on Krypton had superpowers, and then I could jump in as a Superman nerd and say, aha, but that can't really be Krypton because on Krypton, everybody was just normal. Kryptonians don't have superpowers until they pass within the realm, the influence of a yellow sun. So they shouldn't have superpowers on Krypton. Ergo, I can logically deduce that whatever planet that is not Krypton because they should not have powers on Krypton. That's not the way that works. It's made up. If the creators of that hypothetical Superman show want to have people on Krypton flying around in contradiction to other versions of Superman where that's not the case, that's completely their call. And if they wanted to have if they wanted to say, oh, and by the way, this takes place in the same universe as the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and totally contradict how Krypton was in that movie, they're allowed to do that. And I have to accept it. I don't have to like it, but I can't say, well, it doesn't really take place in the Christopher Reeve Superman continuity. Yes, it does. If the people writing it say it does. That's it. That's all it takes. Because it's all made up. Like, my interest in this kind of fan discourse is extremely limited because I think it misses the point of the whole thing. It's not like you're looking for these little moments of contradiction or discontinuity. Then you're saying, aha, see, this is evidence that it doesn't really take place in the other timeline. None of these timelines exist. It's fiction. And if the people making up the fiction say it takes place in a particular universe, then that's it. That's when it takes place. And the continuity errors and the changes, the various things that they have retconned or altered about the aesthetic of the show compared to other versions of it, none of that matters as far as where it takes place, because it's all made up. So, yeah, that's my answer to that question. Trick Simpson says, hey, Steve, hope this finds you and yours doing well. My question is in regards to a friend. She had a stroke, was in a hospital for a week or so transport was arranged to get home. A nurse took her down in a wheelchair to wait, and in the intervening time started spouting off CT and the word QAnon was thrown around. The most distressing thing was that the nurse was a COVID denier. He sat there in his uniform spouting off the usual crap. He said it didn't exist, then it was a plandemic, then any number of easily debunked claims, yet had the balls to do all that in a hospital. We've unfortunately become accustomed to the mentally deficient believing this, but now we have our own medical people in charge of patients who have COVID, yet don't believe it's real. It's not as if he's working with right-wing nut jobs. He's in a hospital in New York. How the fuck do we counter this bullshit? He could be a real danger to someone. Though I'm in the UK, I worry about you all and it's spreading. I mean, could a medical professional working in a hospital filled with COVID patients not believing that COVID was a real disease be grounds for termination? I don't know if you could make that stick or not, but I mean, I feel like somebody in authority at the hospital definitely needs to be told. Definitely needs to be made aware that like this is like that's completely inappropriate for a nurse in a hospital filled with COVID patients to be talking to a COVID patient saying, COVID's fake, right? Like, this is a hoax. Like this is it's absurd. It's unacceptable. Like that somebody at the hospital needs to be told, and I don't know what they could do about it. If all the nurse is doing is talking to people, but other than that, he is performing his duties and giving people the care that they need. I don't know how much you could do about it, but I mean, maybe somebody could have a word. Yeah, but that seems like that should be pretty unacceptable. It seems like that should be pretty unacceptable. But you're right. It is, unfortunately, it is alarmingly widespread in this country. Isaiah Taylor. So one of my favorite and most relatable Star Trek races are the Bajorans. As an African American, I feel like my people and the albeit fictitious Bajorans have a lot of things in common, being oppressed, killed, enslaved, and treated as loafers in society. I sympathize with the Bajorans, and I stand with them 100%. Ro Laren is a total badass. What do you think of the name Isaiah Taylor as a Bajoran name? P.S. My dad just died of an aneurysm, so now I have lost both my parents. Well, first of all, Jesus, man. My condolences for that. I'm so sorry about that. I mean, I feel like I feel kind of weird going back to talking about your Bajoran name after you lay that on me, but I'm so sorry to hear that, my friend. My sincerest condolences to you. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a great Bajoran name. I think that's a terrific Bajoran name. So your first name to us would be Taynor, because the Bajorans flip flop it. So like Kira Nerys Nerisse is like her given name, and Kira is her family name. So would your given name be Tainor, or would you flip it, and would it be Tainor, Tainor Isla, or Tainor Easy, or whatever? I think, is that an L? I think that's an L. Tainor Isla. Would that be it, or would it be Isla Tainor? But yeah, it's a good name. It's a good Bajoran name, my friend. And my God, I'm so sorry about your dad. John Byrne says, hi, Steve. I mentioned the Netflix show Dark Matter. One of the larger organizations within the show was the Council of Corporations. It kind of reminded me of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds from Babylon 5, as the corporations would meet to discuss various issues. And there's the Galactic Authority and the League of Autonomous Worlds. Don't get me wrong, the show focuses on the 7 characters from the Raza, but they're aware of the political aspects of what these larger groups do. And the crew of the Raza are closer in concept to James Bond or the Dread Pirate Roberts, where it doesn't matter who the crew is, it's more about the mystique, similar to the Three Musketeers. The concept of Robin Hood existed before Richard the Lionhearted died, which was a response by England searching for a hero while the king was off crusading. I'm not worried one day you'll check out Dark Matter, but is there a need for a non-political hero today in the U.S.? Another Robin of the Hood? I don't think Robin Hood was an apolitical hero. Maybe Robin Hood was maybe you could have made an argument that Robin Hood was apolitical in some sense back in the day, but I mean, like, Robin Hood robs from the rich and gives to the poor. That feels like an inherently political act. It feels like you are explicitly siding against the ruling class and with the proletariat. You know, Robin Hood would not have used those terms, but like, that seems pretty political. And no, is there a need for a non-political hero? No. There's a need for progressive political heroes. There's a need for political heroes who will be unapologetically on the side of the people and against the side of the unfathomably wealthy, who continue to strip mine this economy and this culture and this nation and the people in it for their own selfish purposes. I think there need to be more political heroes who are on the right side, not non-political heroes. Yeah, for sure. Next question is from Ahoyerno, who says, people are discussing the most outrageous things Trump is going to do on his way out. I honestly don't put it beyond him to just torch the White House, but that's on the extreme end. He's going to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. That's almost a certainty. What do you expect from his flailing in his final days as president reject? Oh, I like that. I would not be surprised at all if he tried to pardon himself, or if he did some other use of the presidential pardon that was so unprecedented and so outrageous that it actually had to go into court, like that it actually had to have the Supreme Court decide whether or not the president was allowed to use the pardon power to do that. I would not put it past him. I would not put it past him to pardon his kids, to pardon other people from his administration, even people who have not been charged with crimes, to just sort of preemptively pardon people and say, oh, whatever they did, you can't prosecute them for it. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think he's going to burn down the White House, but using the presidential pardon power to try and keep himself and his family and his cronies out of prison, that would not surprise me at all. That would not surprise me one bit. Also, it wouldn't surprise me if he made good on his petulant threat to not attend Biden's inauguration. And I think everybody would be just fine with that if Trump didn't show up at Biden's inauguration. I think everybody would prefer that, actually. Yeah, fine. Don't come. That would be great. Some random geek who wonders the most effective way to do agitprop. Steve, I tried to find mutual aid groups you can help out with near Hagerstown with a quick DuckGo search, but the closest I found was some Food Not Bombs chapters in Frederick. In Baltimore, there are local DSA and IWW chapters, but it does look limited where you are. I have more options in the Seattle area, but I also work 60 hours a week sometimes, and I'm trying to earn or raise extra money on Twitch just to give to my disabled friends like Joanna, Phoenix, and my streamer friend Naz the Nico, just so they won't suffer. So while I advocate for direct action and will continue to do so since direct action gets the goods, do little of that myself. Question: on the first read away of The Dispossessed with Dana Cole, you said you are most likely never going to be an anarchist. Yet on Social Justice Alchemy number 88, where you were a guest, you asked, how does anarchism work? So how can you be so pretty sure that you will never be an anarchist when you don't know how anarchism works? Well, it's because I have never had anarchism explained to me in a way that has convinced me that it will work, or that it is inherently a superior enough alternative to massive reforms of the system that we have now that we should pursue that instead of something else. It's a combination of me being skeptical about the fact that it would work at all, and also being skeptical of the fact that even if it did work, how can we be sure that it would work better than the system that we have now? And how could we prevent the kinds of abuses and exploitations and corruption that have made our current system so much worse than it needs to be from also affecting whatever the landscape of an anarchist society would be? So it's not so much that I don't I mean there are definitely details of how it would work that I'm still fuzzy on, that I'm not really sure like how it would work or how things would be organized and things like that. So I mean there are details that I don't know, and I admit that, but it's also just a general skepticism of the whole idea. Like it's a nice idea. If it would work, I think it would be really wonderful in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't fault people for wanting that, but on a practical level, I just don't see how it would work, or if it did work, how it would necessarily be better than what we have. So, General Contact Unit Problem Child says, a few years ago, Eli wrote a blog about Sam Harris where he criticized him for his Islamophobia, but also said, since supposed progressives sent death threats to Sam's daughter on social media, we really can't expect him to be inclined to listen to us. Do you think that's sufficient excuse for someone refusing to listen to reason? Like what you went through with your wife. Suppose, like, you met someone who'd gone through something similar, but it was like supposed progressives who were attacking their partner instead of chuds. And then that person continued to have extremely retrograde ideas about social and economics because they think everyone who has better ideas are just like the person who attacked their partner and thus not worth listening to. Would you think that was understandable? Yes, of course I would think that was understandable. And I do think that's understandable. Yeah. And I probably wouldn't try to convince that person. Like, you don't have to, there's no need to try and convince everybody. You don't need to change everybody's mind. If there's a person who holds what I consider really shitty retrograde views, but they hold them for a very personal reason, a very personal, however irrational reason, and I don't think that there's any moving them off of that or convincing them that they're wrong because what got them there to begin with was such a personal thing, then I'm good. Like, I mean, if they're acting in a way that's causing harm to people, I would want to see them stopped from causing harm to people. But in terms of changing their mind or changing their heart, like I'm not going to waste time trying to do that because that's just not a good use of my time. You know, like, you don't have to change. Maybe Sam Harris doesn't want to listen to reason from progressives because he thinks that some progressive people mistreated his daughter. Okay. I think we waste way too much time trying to talk sense into Sam Harris anyway. Fuck Sam Harris. You know, like, real easy solution. You don't need to change everybody's mind. And if someone is really entrenched in what we consider to be a wrong position, but for a reason that makes them unlikely to be open to persuasion, okay, fuck them. Dataport Doll says, evening, Steve. Sharing a more hopeful story with you in chat. I'm an old hat party Republican, so my social circles lean to the right of most people here. A prospective lady friend I know is considerably more to the right than me in general. Last week, she took a step too far. We were on voice chat, and she got, I will call it, mid-yield hero worship of Trump. I hung up. To cut the awkward back and forth that followed, I've never been a very impulsive ghoster. I agreed we could talk again under the condition that I read her the entire list of what the Trump administration did to LGBT rights. She listened. The next time she spoke, she was crying, asking, how did I never read any of this? I let her know the answer was probably Breitbart framing it as a positive thing. After a long cry, she apologized to me for how her politics hurt me. I hope it's a start. She makes way too cute a lesbian. We know your thoughts in general, Steve, but have you ever witnessed sudden wake-ups like this? Not personally, but I know that they have happened. Yeah, I've never seen it myself or been party to it as far as I know. And certainly not like that, where it was like someone that I was speaking to one-on-one. No, that's never happened to me, and I've never seen it happen, but I know that it happens. I mean, your story is not the first time that I've heard of that sort of thing happening. And I think that's great. Good for her and good for you. I'm glad that she was receptive, when you reached out and when you shared that list of grievances, of crimes, of offenses that Trump has done against LGBT. And God damn, that must be a long list. I'm glad that she was open to that. And so, I mean, I know that kind of thing does happen, but have I ever seen it happen personally? No, not really. But again, as you sort of alluded to, my thoughts in general, like I don't really go looking to make that happen. Like that's just not my deal. I just, I don't try to reach out to people and make that kind of thing happen myself. So no, I haven't ever seen it happen personally, but I'm very glad it happened in this case. That's a wonderful story. Thank you for sharing. Forgot to delete the question part of his question. Angus says, so Spock, as in the original, just cameoed in Discovery, if you can call that a cameo. How do you feel that Discovery is doing in blending Star Trek, the original series, and now Star Trek TNG with its own story? I think they handled Pike brilliantly and Spock okay, but is there a time when they will need to face the ego absent from the room in one James Tiberius Kirk? And which other characters, from what we have to assume is the Star Trek Prime universe, would you like to see? I don't think they have to deal with Kirk, but if they find a reason to mention him or to bring him in some way, in a similar way to how they brought in Spock in this week's new episode of Discovery, like I'd be fine with that. I'm not against it. I think there needs to be a reason for it. I think Discovery has handled Spock very well. And I agree with you. I think they handled Pike really, really well. And I thought the Spock cameo in this week's episode was really well done, and was a great way to tie that episode in with the Next Generation episodes that it was a sequel to, by just literally playing a clip from the episode and saying, "Oh, this is from Captain Picard's personal log," and it's Nimoy as Spock from Unification talking about his dream of Romulan Vulcan reunification. And I thought it was fine. I thought it was really well done, and a nice reminder that Discovery does take place in the same timeline as the other shows, regardless of little quibbles about continuity or set design or whatever. It is meant to take place in the same continuity as the other shows. So let's stop arguing about that, because it's a pointless argument. But yeah, other characters, I don't know. I mean, obviously Riker. It'd be nice to have Frakes do an appearance on Discovery to sort of check that one off the box, or check that box. So yeah, Riker, or like, I don't know, like a Riker descendant or something. I don't know how you would do it, how you would justify it, other than maybe time travel or something, or play like a clip, like a personal log of something Riker said from an episode. But yeah, and I don't know, Worf. Maybe Cisco finally comes out of the wormhole. Maybe Discovery in the 32nd century can be, dropping by the Bajoran sector, and Cisco can pop out of the wormhole. And he's like, well, I was in there for a long time, huh? It's been how long? It's been how many hundreds of years? Maybe that could be fun. Next question is from Joe McClory, who says, I have tried writing a few questions now, and they may come up in the live stream, but I have been thinking a lot about your Saving the Souls video. I have a different take. I don't care if they feel welcome or voiceless while they are still doing harm. I just want to scream, if you can't behave like an adult, you are not invited to adult discourse. You cannot have your debate until there are rules in place, and if you break them, then you get muted. I don't want an apology, and I don't care if those that do want one get it until after the hurting stops. Talk of forgive and unite has to stop until they stop hurting people and supporting people that do. Sorry, this isn't much of a question, but I would like to hear your take on it, and honestly, no other questions would come out until I vented. I agree with you 100%. I completely agree with you. I feel exactly the same way. There were people in the comments of that video, they were saying, because that was the video where I talked about the old guy who is sitting on his front porch as I drive by, and he's obviously a military veteran because he's wearing like a veteran hat, and then he has a Trump 2020 flag still flying from his porch. And people were, I assume some of them, maybe even most of them, were good faith comments. Who were saying, well, why didn't you start a conversation with him? Why didn't you ask him about, why he supports Trump, or why didn't you talk to him? I don't want to talk to that motherfucker. Fuck that guy. Like, I mean, I said I had a little bit of sympathy for him because I thought about, how much he has been played, how much he has been duped, how much he has been exploited and taken advantage of by Republicans and by people like Donald Trump. And how he has been fed this line of bullshit and ignorance and fear and bigotry and xenophobia and swallowed all of us for his whole life. And now here's the result. 70 something, maybe, I guess, military veteran openly supporting Donald Trump weeks after Trump lost an election, and after 4 years of the Trump administration being an absolute nightmare. And but my sympathy only goes so far, because as you say in your question, the truth is that old guy is contributing to harm. That old guy is making the lives of other people worse. He is supporting people who are making their lives worse, who are causing harm, who are hurting people. So that old guy can die tomorrow and go to hell. I don't care what happens to him. I'm not interested in reaching out to him. I'm not interested in being his friend. I'm not interested in understanding him. I'm completely with you, Joe. I'm interested in getting people like him and like the people he supports, for whatever reason they support them, however justified they may feel they are, to stop hurting people. And my version of that is to take away their political power, not to change their hearts and minds, not to reach out to them and invite them over to fucking dinner, or make them feel loved and like the Grinch thing. Their hearts will grow 3 sizes that day. I don't think that happens most of the time. I don't think most of them are worth the effort. I think the best way to deal with this is to take as much of their political power away as possible, to rob them of their influence in our culture, to rob them of their influence and their power in our politics, to beat them in elections, to deny them platforms as much as we can, to ignore them as much as we can. And when ignoring them isn't enough, when ignoring them only enables them, then to do what we can within the bounds of the law to stop them from causing harm to people. That's, I think, is the best way forward. Not uniting, not forgive and forget, not let's put it all behind us, bygones be bygones. No, fuck them. They're still supporting Trump. They're still supporting the Republican Party. They're still contributing to harm. So to hell with them. We need to beat them. They've been spending the last 40 years focused on nothing but beating us. And some of us are still like, well, let's figure out a way that we can make friends with them. Fuck them. We have to beat them the way they have been beating us for my entire life. That's how we make this better. That's how we stop the harm that they are causing. We get our shit together. We focus. We get out the vote. We run and elect more progressive candidates who will support more progressive policies than a lot of mainstream Democrats will. We win elections with those candidates. We install legislators and executives and elected officials in all levels of government who will do more progressive things, who will do what needs to be done, and who will roll back and stop Republicans and people that old fucker on the porch voted for, will stop them from doing the harm that they've been doing. That's how we win. Not by melting the ice around their hearts. That's a fucking fairy tale. That does happen in isolated cases from time to time. Dataport Doll just shared a great story about that. It happens from time to time. But does it happen often enough with enough people that that's like a winning political strategy? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the way to win is to energize the voters who would vote for you anyway, or who are more leaning in your direction to begin with, removing barriers that make it difficult or impossible for them to vote, encourage them to vote, give them more things to vote for. I think all of that is a much, much more fruitful strategy than saying, let's unite with Trump supporters. Let's try to find common ground with fucking Trump supporters. Fuck them. And honestly, I don't care if they want forgiveness. I don't care if they seek forgiveness. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that at all. I don't care. I don't care. I want to stop them from doing harm. I'm in the same, as far as what I read from your question, Joe. I'm in the same place you are. I want to stop them from doing harm, and to me that means beating them in elections. Social Justice Alchemy is watching the Cogdis live stream to raise money for the Georgia Senate races. Go watch the live stream. They've raised $100,000. That is awesome. Yes, please. I won't. It won't hurt my feelings at all if y'all want to go watch the cognitive dissonance live stream. I didn't know about that, but yeah, good for them raising money for the Georgia Senate races. That's awesome. That's the sort of thing we should be doing instead of trying to reach out and make friends with fucking Trump supporters. Fuck them all. Do something like this. Support the Georgia Senate races so that Democrats can actually win those seats. And President Biden can have a majority of Democrats in both houses, and there's at least an opening to get something done. I'm not pretending that Joe Biden is going to be like this progressive messiah, but at least there would be an opening there to get something done. That's a practical thing that you can do to try and make things better. Instead of saying, go fucking start a conversation with the guy flying the Trump flag from his porch. Fuck that guy. I'm going to waste fucking 10 minutes of my life talking to that motherfucker instead when I could be doing something practical that could actually help to win an election for our side. Yeah, no, I'm completely over that. I'm completely over that. That's a waste of my fucking time. And it's probably a waste of your fucking time too. And finally, Matthew Maeda says, hi, Steve. A bit of a simple question. Which episode was your favorite of each of the Star Trek series, as well as which movie was your favorite out of the whole franchise? Ooh. My favorite episode of TOS is Amok Time. My favorite episode of TNG is either Chain of Command or Tapestry. It's tough to choose between those. Favorite episode of DS9 is The Visitor, and it's also my favorite episode of any Star Trek show ever. Favorite episode of Voyager, maybe The Thaw. That's a really good one. Favorite episode of Enterprise is, I can never remember the title, but it's an episode from the first season. And it's the one, I think it's the one where they encounter a comet. And also it has the scene where the crew on the bridge is answering questions from kids back on Earth. That's a fun episode. Favorite episode of Discovery. The one from last season where they visit Saru's planet was really good. I can't remember the title of it, but that was a really good episode. And also, I think the second episode of season 2, the one where they go to New Earth, where they visit that colony of people, that was a really good episode, and much more of a standalone episode than Discovery usually does. Favorite episode of Picard, probably Nepenthe, the Riker and Troy episode, and favorite movie, Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. Yeah. Easy, a nice easy question. Good question. Good question to end the patron question section on. So thank you, Matthew, for that. Thank you to all of my patrons for all of your questions. Reminder: if you want to submit a question early for Ask Away, you can do so if you are a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. I put up a Patreon post Monday on the week when I'm going to do an Ask Away on Friday, and you can there's a link there that you click that takes you to a Google form, and you post your question there, and there we go. We're off to the races. So thanks to all my patrons for questions. Now let's turn to the live chat, shall we? Let's see what everybody's asking. Oh, and I just got a super chat from John Gingras. Thank you, John, who says, I know how to get Frakes onto Discovery. Riker can appear in the final episode of the series, and we learned that it has all been a holo novel that he's been writing. Just kidding, obviously. Or are you? I'd be down for that. No, I wouldn't. It would not be a good ending to the series, but it's a nice It's a fun idea. It's a fun idea. Oh, John Brockman says the Cogdis live stream just ended and they raised about 120,000. That's awesome. Good job. Good job, everybody at Cogdis. That's great. Do 255 AD says there was no proletariat in the 12th century. You only have proletariat under capitalism. In the Middle Ages, its lowest class was the peasantry, sometimes slaves. Yeah, slaves are, I guess, what, serfs. But yeah, you get the idea that I'm getting at, though. Robin Hood sided with the lower class against the upper class. Deralta Trekkie says, concerning names, I tried to come up with a Klingon name, but all I came up with was Kroga. Do you think that works as a Klingon name? Sure. Kroga as a Klingon name? Fuck yeah. Oh, Deralta Trekkie says, since we had Sherlock and Jekyll told in modern times, do you think we should get a Robin Hood in modern times? Name Sherwood. Yeah. I mean, it would depend on how good it was, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a neat idea. Joe McClory says, what are your feelings on Latent Image, the Doctor memory erasing ep of Voyager? I think I watched it relatively recently. I think probably as research for a video. It's not like a terrible episode. But it's interesting how long it takes, like, quite a few members of the Voyager crew to accept and acknowledge that the Doctor is a person. You know what I mean? Like Janeway erasing the Doctor's memories. Like, that's a provocative question because her reason for doing it makes sense superficially, but then you cannot imagine a captain doing that with another crew member. Like, if the Doctor was a biological being and had gone through some absolutely horrible traumatic event that was preventing him from doing his job, and the rest of the crew, and he was the only Doctor on board, and the rest of the crew depended on the Doctor doing his job, but he just couldn't function because he was going through this insurmountable emotional trauma. And the captain's solution to that was, let's lobotomize him and get rid of the memories of the traumatic experience, and then he'll be able to do his job. Like, I don't think anybody would sit still for that for a second. But that's exactly what she does to the Doctor. And it's okay in her mind because he's just a computer. Like, she can just erase some memory files and good as new. You know? So, I mean, it's a provocative episode, but it really took Janeway and other members of the crew way, way, way too long to finally come around to the fact that the Doctor was a person who had rights that should have been respected. 255 AD says, do you buy that Sam Harris refuses to listen to progressives because they were shitty to his daughter, or do you think he just knows where his bread is buttered these days? It's probably closer to the second one. No, I don't think that's really the reason. If Sam Harris says that that's the reason, or I mean, did Eli just suggest that, or has Sam Harris actually said that? I don't know, because I pay very little attention to Sam Harris. Either way, I don't think that's really the reason. No, I don't think that's really the reason. Is it because he knows where his bread is buttered? Maybe, or maybe Sam Harris just genuinely believes the shitty things that he says. Maybe he's just a shitty person. You know. Deralta Trekkie says, on Twitter, I stumbled upon a woman saying, well, Trump is the best president since Kennedy. And no, she was not kidding. Why are people unable to see that Trump is not like Kennedy? I don't know. That is a stumper for me, because the way that statement is phrased, it implies that she thinks Kennedy was a great president too. How can you think that John Kennedy was a great president and also think that Donald Trump is a great president? Like, I don't see how you get there. I don't see how you get there. But yeah, it baffles me. It baffles me. It baffles me how anybody can think that Trump is a good president in any way, period, let alone, oh, best president since, and then they like their point of reference is specifically JFK. Yeah. Um, 255 AD says, also following on from my question, should we have any sympathy or empathy toward people who hold shitty views because of personal trauma? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being with empathy. You should, if people have been affected by personal trauma and that is the cause of them leading kind of like a maladjusted life or like of course people who have experienced personal trauma deserve sympathy and empathy, but should that should persuading people who hold shitty views because of personal trauma away from those shitty views, should that be a focus? I don't think so. I mean, maybe if they are given help processing the trauma and working through it, um, that would be that maybe that would help them get past the shitty views. I don't know. Um, Oh, Dalton Trek says, what do you think came down on June 30, 1908 in Russia, the Tunguska event? A meteorite, a comet, an alien ship, a black hole? What do you think of the Utah monolith? I think the Utah monolith was probably put there by somebody. But I think the Tunguska event, I mean, I'm not an expert, obviously. I'm not like an astronomer or anything like that, but I think it was probably a comet because it was like a massive fireball and a major event, but it didn't leave a crater. I mean, something obviously hit there, but it didn't leave like a crater. So you wouldn't think it would be an asteroid or, a meteorite. It would be when it hit the ground. Um, so I would, a comet made mostly of ice, you would think would leave less of a mark on the surface. So I would say it was probably a comet, but I'm not an expert. I don't know. Dana says you can be an anarchist even if you don't live in an anarchistic society. In fact, right now that's kind of the way it is. You just do what you can to live by anti-hierarchical ideals. Well, that sounds fair. I'm down with that. I mean, the whole idea is that you want to oppose unjust hierarchies, and I mean, whether you are an anarchist in terms of your political philosophy or not, unjust anything is something that that we should try to do something about. And if someone is subject to an unjust hierarchy, I think that it's perfectly it's not just okay. I feel like it's incumbent upon us to do that, you know and to try and help people be as free as they can and to live lives that are as defined by fairness and justice as we possibly can. So no, I mean that makes complete sense to me for sure. um Trina says, not really a question. Just wanted to say that I enjoy your channel here on YouTube as well as the Ensign's log. So nice to see that you finally found Dana Cole for the female parts. Yep. 100% agree. Um, 255 AD says the U.S. hasn't had a president without a college degree since the 1940s. How would you feel about electing someone with just a high school degree? I wouldn't be automatically against it. I mean, I would tend to prefer someone who had a college degree just because, not out of any sort of intellectual snobbery or whatever. But I mean, I feel like a college degree is just something that I wish more people had and would have access to, would have the opportunity to get one if they wanted one. But no, I don't think not having a college degree should disqualify you from being president. If there is a brilliant candidate who is obviously well suited to the job and was better than the person they were running against, and they just had a high school education, I think that would be great. I would certainly still vote for them. You know, um, and yes, by the way, since Trina is talking about the Ensign's log, and of course Dana is here with us as usual. Yeah, the new episode did drop today, and it's a big one. It's a great episode of the Ensign's log. It's the episode where we encounter Edith Keeler. For those of you who have been keeping up with the show, and of course Edith Keeler, played by the wonderful Dana Cole, who did a great job. As she always does. She's great. As Trina says in her comment, that Dana is a great actress. That is absolutely true. Dana is so good on the show. So yeah, everybody listen to the new episode of the Ensign's log that dropped today, with Dana as Edith Keeler. How cool is that? This is an episode that we've been sort of building to for quite a while. Derogatory Trekkie says, concerning other political careers before president, you had an actor, Reagan. Why not a stage magician or a journalist? The press conferences should be fun. Oh my God, a magician as president would be so great. Journalists would be great too. I would love to see a journalist as president. Like, yeah, I just, yeah, more careers in politics, I think would be great. Joe McClory asks, favorite horror movie? Ooh, boy. The Murnau, the original Murnau Nosferatu is way up there. I also really like Romero's Dawn of the Dead. It's such a good movie. Ooh, God. And the original Romero's original Night of the Living Dead is really great too. It's tough to pick. And of course, like some of the hammers, like Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein, are awesome. Some of the Universal horrors like Wolfman and Invisible Man and Bride of Frankenstein. It's so tough to pick. If I absolutely had to pick a favorite horror movie, it would probably be either the original Nosferatu or the original Dawn of the Dead, but it's so tough to pick. 255 AD says, who do you think will win the battle for the GOP's soul? The neocons in the party establishment or QAnon nut jobs that are increasingly the base? Well, the neocons don't seem to be doing a hell of a lot to stop the QAnon nut jobs from taking over. So, I mean, if the current trend continues, it's going to be them. Because it's not like the neocons are doing a whole lot to stop them. And when the QAnon nut jobs do attain more influence in the party, or Christ, even someone like Trump, who may not be a QAnon person himself, but is worshipped by them and is very receptive to them and welcoming to them. The so-called moderate establishment Republicans, they don't do shit about it. They just roll right over for it. So, I mean, it sounds like that's the direction things are going. Derogatory Trekkie says, in Germany was a rally of the anti-corona measure idiots, and one woman got on stage and compared herself to Sophie Scholl because she protests against COVID. Are these people stupid? Yes. Yeah. They're incredibly foolish, self-destructive people. They make a virtue out of doing something, out of needlessly risking their lives and risking the lives of other people. What else do you call that other than deeply, deeply foolish and reckless and irresponsible? It's, yeah. 255 AD says, are you worried Fox News is going to go even more out of touch with reality to bring back all the chuds they're losing for accurately reporting the election? I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll actually try to go the other direction. I don't know. I mean, I don't watch Fox News and I don't intend to start watching it. So I don't have a lot of investment in that. Fox News can go out of business for all I care. I think that would be great. But no, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they will go further and further to the right to try and bring back the people they're losing to OAN or OANN, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on how big of a deal Trump's media network is if he actually starts one. Why are these people stupid? I don't know. That's an even better question. Why are these people stupid? I have no idea. Because they listen to the wrong people, because they are susceptible to media that gives them information that is dangerous and wrong, and they are not skeptical enough or have not been equipped with the critical thinking tools to tell the difference. Ooh, Daryl Letts, this is a good one. What are some of your favorite one-liners from TV or movies? I like Soylent Green as people, Stella, and it's a cookbook. That last line from To Serve Man, a Twilight Zone episode. And then Dana asks, do I remember any dialogue from Firefly? Dana, that one's easy. Here's my favorite line from Firefly. Huh. Oh, and Wash's line that I mentioned in the live stream when he says, "Can we discuss the whole committing murder thing?" I thought that was a good line. I'm trying to think of good Twilight Zone lines now, because yeah, it's a cookbook is a great Twilight Zone line. Well, I've referenced this one on Twitter a bunch about the Trump administration from the classic Twilight Zone episode. Oh, It's a Good Life. The guy who it's his birthday party and he gets drunk and he finally kind of loses it on Anthony, and like everybody else is all scared that Anthony's going to wish him into the cornfield or something. And he's like, okay, I'm going to make him mad. And while he's focused on me, somebody sneak up behind him and get a chair or something and crack it across his skull. And like everybody's standing there, terrified. They don't want to do anything to Anthony that'll risk their lives. And the guy goes, won't somebody take a lamp or a bottle or something and end this? What a great line. What a great line. Yeah, curse your sudden but inevitable. But I always forget that. I guess I'm not as, I know you, Dana, I've heard you say that, and I associate that line more with you than I do with Firefly, because I've heard you say that before. I guess that it just hasn't stuck with me as much. But another great line from The Simpsons, from one of the great Simpsons Halloween episodes, when it's the time travel episode, when Homer keeps going back in time and then coming back to the present, and it's all messed up. And he goes back into the past, and he's trying not to touch anything or change anything so that it won't alter the future. And he makes it all the way through before the toaster goes off, and he goes back to his own time. And right before the time machine yanks him back, he trips and falls backwards, and he lands on a fish crawling out of the sea. Which is probably a pretty significant event that Homer just completely squashed. And he lands, he sits down on the fish and kills it. And he goes, "Oh, I wish I hadn't killed that fish." So that's one. From Unforgiven, deserves got nothing to do with it. That's a great line. Also, it's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away all he's got and all he's ever gonna have. Yeah, so many great lines. Jesus, there's so many great lines. Super chat from Hori Honkanen, who says, Steve, there's someone on the wing. Something on the wing. There's a man out there. Oh, Shatty Shat. Oh, Shatty Shat Shatner. Such a shitty person, but what a delightful actor. Um, Trick Simpson, this is a great question. Is there any actual reason why Lou Dobbs and ilk at Fox Business spend their time constantly talking about the president when it is meant to be about business? Nope. I think Fox Business is just an extension of Fox News at this point. I mean, I know that there are some shows of theirs that are ostensibly about business, about the stock market, about the economy, etc. But you're right. It seems like, and I don't watch it, but it seems like from clips I see and from what people say, that it's mostly just Fox News too. You know, they don't feel any particular compunction to talk about business. They'd rather just talk about Trump. Um, yeah, Donald Paluga, Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit. That's a great one. That's a great line. Um, 255 AD. Someone comes up to you and says, "I used to be a Trump supporter or a Trump voter. I know better now. I'm so sorry." What do you say to them? I probably say, "Good for you," and then I move on with my life. I mean, I'll say, "Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. Good for you." I mean, I'm not going to, you know, throw a party for them because they finally realized the obvious. But I mean, I think it's a good thing. I wish more people would do that. But I mean, good for you. Okay. Ooh, Daryl, that's a good one from Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Oh, and that's a yeah. From I love that everybody is quoting lines from their favorite things now. This is awesome. Um, oh, Ginger, yes, I am wearing a Superman shirt. Yes, I am wearing a. This is the Max Fleischer Superman, my favorite version of Superman. Um, did I call you Hori Konkanen? I'm sorry, Corey. I'm sorry. Um, accidental. Um, yeah, people quoting the Burgess Meredith episode, or the Burgess Meredith. He was in like 5 episodes. The Time Enough at Last episode of Twilight Zone. Yeah, it's not fair. Although the line from that episode that I find myself quoting the most often is when he's called into his bank manager's office near the beginning, and the bank manager says to him, "You, Mister Bemis, are a reader," and he looks at him kind of perplexed and goes, "Uh, a reader?" Like he's never heard. And then he has the fight with his wife later on, and his wife like shows him the book of poetry that she crossed out all the poems in, and he looks at the book of poetry and he's crestfallen that she's ruined his book, and he looks up at his wife and he goes, "Why, Helen? Why do you do these things?" Dorota Trekkie says, one of my most favorite quotes: "I am the terror that flaps in the night. I'm the spider in your neck. I am Darkwing Duck." Okay, yeah. Well, I didn't watch that show nearly as often as you might think I did. Um, Harry Garrison, I have not watched Stargirl. No, I have not. Um, 255 AD says, "Do you feel jealous of the fact that the fascists are having an easier time taking over the Republican Party than progressives are taking over the Democratic Party?" Yes. Yes. I am kind of envious about that, for sure. Um, oh, Trina, that's a good one. There are four lights. Yeah, there are four lights. What are some other good Star Trek quotes? Q from Tapestry that I mentioned earlier is one of my favorite episodes when he comes in as the flower delivery guy to walk in on Picard. When he's is it after he wakes up after he's slept with uh, uh, Marta Botenides? Or is it before that when they're having like a scene before they actually sleep together? But like Q comes toddling in as a flower delivery guy. And he says, flowers. And he holds up the card and says, is there a John Luck Pickard here? And there's another great line. There's Q has a bunch of great lines in that episode. It's when Picard is in the bar talking to a woman named Penny, and then she gets offended by something he says and throws a drink in his face and leaves. And Q comes up as the bartender and tosses him a towel and goes, "Penny for your thoughts." And then Picard tells him the story of how he got stabbed in the heart by the Nausicaans, and Q says, "That's a beautiful story. Gets you right here, doesn't it?" We could just do Q quotes. Oh, Pedro, let them die. Oh, that's such a great line. Yes, Jim, they're dying. Let them die. Fuck, what a great line. Fuck. Oh, God. Yes, that's right, Corey, and Trina as well. Yeah, when after he sleeps with Marta, Q is in bed with him, and he wakes up and he like touches his ear and goes, "Morning, darling." Yeah, that's a great one. That's such a great one. Oh, you obtuse piece of flotsam. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. You were to be denied existence. Oh, okay. Okay, Neil, that's a good one. Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. From a shitty movie, but that's a great over the top, like super dramatic line. And someone just reminded me of one. Sherlock Holmes. So there's a great line. One of my favorite Sherlock Holmes line. It's from The Problem at Thor Bridge. And it's Holmes, and he's talking to this guy who's like a rich guy from the United States, and he's moved to England. And his, I think it's his young wife has died, and it's the mystery of Holmes has been brought in to discover what happened to her, and the rich American guy is a total jerk, and he's being a jerk to Holmes, and he's being a jerk to everybody else, and acting really suspicious, and but is like bossing Holmes around because like, hey, I hired you, you're the detective who's here working for me, and blah blah blah. And Holmes says, some of you rich men must be taught that all the world cannot be bribed into ignoring your offenses. And isn't that just an amazing line? And a line that, like, wouldn't it be nice if more world leaders held that line and that idea close to their heart, And more people in general, not just world leaders, but more people in general. Some of you rich men must be taught that all the world cannot be convinced to forgiving your offenses. It's just, oh, what a great line. And I'm going to be wrapping up the show in a minute or two. So if anybody has final questions in the live chat, queue them up, and I'll answer a few more questions. And then we'll end this. We will take a lamp or a bottle or something and end this. 255 AD says, at some point, are you going to have Lance on your new interview show to return the favor for him having you on the serfs? I would love to have Lance on. Yeah, I don't know. Lance might be on my wish list. I'm not sure. Lance might be on my wish list, but yeah, I would totally have Lance on. I had a great time on the Surf's Twitch channel with Lance. Absolutely. Dana, yes, I do have a favorite poem. Actually, there are two Emily Dickinson poems that I absolutely love. Let me look them up. Yeah, it's one of them is and they're both really short, which I like. Faith is a fine invention for gentlemen who see, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. What a great poem. I just love that so much. And then there's another Emily Dickinson poem that I just found at the Poetry Foundation that is just absolutely beautiful. No, wait a minute. Yeah, this is okay. The microscopes one is a good one. But this one, which is also an Emily Dickinson poem, might be my favorite poem ever. And it's "The Brain is Wider Than the Sky," and it goes like this: "The brain is wider than the sky, for put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. The brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them blue to blue, the one the other will absorb, as sponges buckets do. The brain is just the weight of God, for heft them pound for pound, and they will differ, if they do, as syllable from sound." Isn't that a beautiful poem? I just love that poem so much. I think even more than the "Faith is a Fine Invention," I think "The Brain is Wider Than the Sky" might be my favorite poem. It's just so beautiful, and it's like it speaks to the power of the mind, the power of the human imagination, our ability to conceive things and sort of internalize them. Take the we're not capable of completely understanding, but we're capable of conceiving and perceiving the most enormous, complex, beautiful things, and we can hold it all in our mind and our brains. It's amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful quality of being a living, conscious being. And and that poem really puts it to words, really articulates that idea in a powerful, exquisite way. I love that poem so much. Geralta Trekkie, I did watch The Golden Girls. I don't know if I can think of a favorite episode off the top of my head, but I love The Golden Girls. It's such a great show. Really, I can't say that it's like underrated anymore, because a lot of people have talked about it recently and remembered it fondly. But yeah, I used to watch The Golden Girls a lot. My favorite Golden Girl, by the way. Does anybody want to guess who my favorite Golden Girl was? I mean, there's only so many possibilities. Yes, Dana, you are correct. It's Dorothy. Of course it's Dorothy. Of course it's Dorothy. Dorothy is by far my favorite Golden Girl. I love Dorothy so much. I like them all. Like, they're all really funny, but Dorothy is my favorite. Absolutely. 100%. It's Dorothy. Sophia's great. Blanche is great. Rose is great. Rose is awesome. They always give Rose the dark jokes. Like, Rose is always like the really sweet, sort of naive, bubbly one, but they give Rose the darkest jokes. Like, Rose killed her husband during the act of sex. Rose's husband died having sex with her, and that's part of Rose's story. That's such a dark fucking part of her story, and it's played for a laugh. And some of the things Rose says, like some of her one-liners, are so dark. It's hilarious. But Dorothy is by far my favorite. Dorothy's my favorite. B. Arthur was a brilliant, brilliant actor. Incredible comic timing. Was just a genius. I love B. Arthur, and Dorothy's my favorite Golden Girl for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Maude too. Yeah, she was Maude as well. Absolutely, she was great. She was fantastic. Yeah, Joe McClure says, "Me too. Dorothy is my kindred old lady for sure." Um, Some Random Geek, if you have a chance to check it out sometime, I would recommend it. It's a fun show. It's a very fun show. Um, yeah. So anyway, I am going to speaking of fun shows. Now this show isn't as fun as the Golden Girls, but it's okay. It has its moments. I'm going to wrap up this show. So first, I want to remind everybody, because some Random Geek has reminded me a couple times in the chat already, and I don't want to forget. Don't forget about the charity links that are linked in the description of this video. There's a Google Doc that you can click the link to, and you will go and all of these fundraisers like GoFundMe's and PayPal links and stuff have been collected by our friends Some Random Geek, and they're to friends of ours who are struggling financially, who need a little bit of a helping hand. If you have a few extra bucks you can part with and you want to help out some people who need a helping hand, check out the charity links doc and please help out some of our friends in that doc, because they're all they're pals of Some Random Geeks. They're pals of mine. They could use a hand, and so I would encourage you all to check out the charity links linked in the description of this video. Also, don't forget, as I mentioned earlier already, if you want to help me out, patreon.com/Steve Shives. You can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month, $5 a month, and you get a shout out at the end of a Trek Actually video. And $1 a month or more, you get to submit questions early for Ask Away, and also you get to vote for upcoming Trek Actually video topics as well. That's and patreon.com/Steve Shives is where you go for that. Also, don't forget, we already mentioned this a couple times. I'm the co-host of a couple of podcasts, a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. One of them is Late Seating, the movie review podcast with myself and Jason Harding. And our most recent episode of that went up last week. It's our review of the classic Clash of the Titans, which came out really well. And just today, the new episode of The Ensign's Log went up, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that co-stars myself and Jason, and now the wonderful, talented, just all around amazing Dana Cole, who is in the chat and has also, Dana and I have been doing videos together as well on this channel. But Dana has been joining us on the Ensign's Log for the last several episodes. And like I said earlier, it's the episode where Steve and Jason, Ensign Johnson and Ensign Splunk encounter Edith Keeler, played, of course, by Dana. It's such a good episode. So check that out. LetMeListenPodcast.com, and also links in the description to listen via SoundCloud or subscribe via RSS using your podcast app of choice. It's however you want to listen to it, but please listen to the Ensign's Log, especially today, because it's a great episode, and Late Seating. LetMeListenPodcasts.com. I will be back on, first of all, Sunday is my Patreon hangout, which patrons can come to, but everybody can watch, and that'll be starting at noon Eastern on Sunday. Monday is the next episode of Steve's Conversation stream. That'll start streaming live at 6 p.m. My guest will be the one and only wonderful Callie Wright. Callie and I have been pals for a very, very long time, and I'm so awesome that Callie is going to be joining me on the Conversation stream Monday night. We're going to talk about Star Trek. We'll probably talk about podcasting, because Callie is a veteran podcaster, and all kinds of other stuff for us to talk about. So that should be fun. Wednesday, Dana and I will be back on together for the next episode of Trek Actually. No, I haven't gotten Dana on Trek Actually yet. Trek Reluctantly, which we'll be watching the next episode of Deep Space Nine, the second episode from the first season of Deep Space Nine, which Dana has never seen. And then next Friday, a week from tonight, there will be the next episode of our Read Away series, where Dana and I will be together once again to discuss the next chapter, the third chapter of Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed. And I think also Monday, Dana and I have another video. Dana and I have a pre-recorded video coming up on Monday about where we talk about Batman some more. We talk about whether or not Batman is inherently fascist, which should be a fun video. So that'll go up on Monday morning, and then Monday night will be the Conversation stream. Wednesday is Trek Reluctantly. Friday is Read Away. So I'm busy lately. A lot of stuff lately, which I'm very, very happy about. And I'm glad that you all are willing to join me for it. So thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for being patrons, those of you who are. Thanks for the super chats, those of you who gave super chats. And thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend. Please be safe. And I'll see you for the Patreon hangout on Sunday, and then I'll see you for the Conversation stream Monday night. Bye, everybody.